The year is 1914, a small island where there is no city, no crowd of people, only a lighthouse and a mystery which is hidden in the depths of the ocean. The film starts by showing a ship which is moving towards its destination through the South Atlantic Ocean. There was a weather officer named David on that ship. They were going towards an island which was hidden in the deepest parts of the Atlantic Ocean. The government had sent David there so that he could observe the changing weather of that island. David had to stay there for almost a year to collect data, understand the strange changes in the weather and then return. The captain was taking David to that island on his ship. He also had food for a year and all the necessary items. After a long journey, finally they reached the island. They landed on the island with the help of a boat and also brought their necessary items. There was a lighthouse on the island and a small house where David had to stay because even before this a weather officer used to live there, but now his duty time was over. From today, David became the new weather officer of this island. The old officer Robert was now about to return home in Captain Axel's ship. But after going to that house they were surprised. There was no trace of any human being. The furniture was scattered inside the room. Everything was upside down. Maybe there could be someone in the lighthouse. Captain and David without wasting time moved towards the lighthouse and see a strange sight there. The whole lighthouse was surrounded by sharp and pointed sticks, as if someone had deliberately closed it so that no one could go inside. Captain and David knocked the gate of the lighthouse many times but there was no response. Finally they pushed the gate hard and entered inside. Right on top of the lighthouse they found a man named Gruner lying down. When they asked Gruner about the old weather officer, he replied very carelessly that he is dead. He had some terrible disease. When the captain asked him about the dead body, his answer was even more strange. Maybe someone must have killed him. David and Captain both were shocked to hear Gruner's words. They thought maybe Gruner's mental condition is not good. But until the old man's body was found, he was lying down. The address of the officer is not found. They cannot do anything. The captain said to David that if you still want, you can come back with us, but David knew that if he could give the accurate weather report of this island to the government, he could get a lot of money and he needed money anyway, so he decided that he would stay here. The captain gave him a gun for protection. Perhaps this place is not as safe as it looks. After the captain left, David settled the house a bit and made it livable. In one of the doors of the room, he found a diary of an old officer. That officer had set foot on this island in 1913. A lot was written about the island in the diary, but everything was not clear. Some things were incomplete. David kept reading each line carefully. There were also sketches of some strange animals in the diary. David did not understand why he had made such pictures. Perhaps he was lonely and must have done this to pass time. There was also a photo of his wife on one page of the diary. David got tired of reading that diary and slowly he fell asleep. The next morning David started his work. But as soon as he reached the sea, his steps stopped. Some stones were arranged in a strange way among the rocks and some seashells were also placed among them in a strange pattern. Thinking this, he again got busy in his work, collecting weather data, the same work for which he had come here. During work, when he looked towards the lighthouse through binoculars, he saw another person with Gruner, but then he thought that maybe it was his illusion. It was night and David was busy in his work, when there was a knock on the door. He thought maybe it was Gruner. David called his name but there was no response. As soon as David moved forward with a lamp in his hand, some strange sounds started echoing in his ears and then he saw that the hand of some strange creature was trying to come inside from under the gate. That hand was not human. David's heart was filled with fear. He immediately ran towards the basement and hid there. In a short while, that mysterious creature had entered the house. It was secretly searching for David. The creature was seen from a small crack in the basement. The terrifying eyes started staring at David. David picked up a knife and as soon as those eyes came in front of that crack, he stabbed it with full force. The creature ran away screaming but she could come back anytime. David closed the basement gate firmly and tied it tightly with a rope and spent the whole night awake there in the shadow of terror. The next morning when David went out of the house, he saw some marks on the sand. The footprints did not look like humans. It was very clear that this was not the work of any human. Those marks went straight towards the sea and ended. Now David understood everything. Why Gruner had put pointed logs around the lighthouse, maybe for that strange creature, and now David knew that this house is not safe for him at all. Maybe that creature will return again tonight. Out of fear, David runs towards the lighthouse and shouts at Gruner to open the gate. I want to come inside, but Gruner does not let him in and says that you should have returned with that ship. David returns disappointed but now he has to make his house safe. He checked every window of the house. He closed the windows with wood and surrounded with sharp sticks on all sides, and kept old papers and books outside the gate. then sprinkled oil on them so that if that creature came back, it could be scared away by fire. But there was one thing that David did not know till now, and he was going to know this tonight. Luckily he found an old box inside the house. There was a gun and many bullets in that box. Seeing this he got some courage, but the fear was still alive. As the sun started setting, the darkness of the night spread everywhere. David was sitting quietly in a corner of the house with the gun in his hand. His breathing was fast. Then a strange sound was heard, and when David stepped towards the window, it was as if the ground slipped from under his feet. Not just one, but many of the same strange creatures were seen rising from the water, and all were moving towards his house. In a short while, they started trying to break the gate. David immediately started firing bullets. Some creatures fell, but the rest became even more violent. They were now trying to enter the house. As their numbers started increasing, David, without wasting any time, set fire to the papers and old books kept outside the gate. Seeing the fire, those creatures returned to the sea in fear, but now the same fire had reached David's house. The house was on fire, and because the whole house was made of wood, the fire spread like lightning. David immediately wrapped himself in a sheet and saved himself. He broke the gate and came out and hid behind a big stone near the lighthouse. His right hand was badly burnt. Luckily, it started raining at that very moment. The fire started extinguishing slowly, but even after the rain throughout the night, David could not save his house till morning. The whole house was almost burnt to ashes. Now if David wants to stay alive, he will have to take shelter in the lighthouse. He picked up his rifle and hid among the stones near the lighthouse. When Gruner came out of the lighthouse to fill water, David followed him. The intention was to take him at gunpoint and enter the lighthouse, but suddenly when Gruner pointed the gun at him, a strange creature attacked him which was near Gruner. That creature was Gruner's protector. Gruner immediately stopped David and said, "This is my pet, David." He did not fire but put a condition that if he wanted to stay alive, he should be allowed to stay in the lighthouse. He had enough gunpowder for a year and also enough food so that both could survive. Gruner remained silent for some time and then slowly agreed. Before evening, both returned to the lighthouse with the remaining food. The next morning, Creature was quietly licking David's hand while David was in deep sleep, and in a short while, his hand was healed to a great extent. All this was a shock for David, but what was happening in front of his eyes was difficult to believe. On the top of the lighthouse, David saw that Gruner was counting the bullets that he had received from the gun, and that Creature was also helping Gruner in his own way. This meant that this animal was not violent. David now wanted to know more about it from Gruner and then wanted to bring all this in front of the world, because this was no less than a miracle. A strange female creature was in front of them from the deep darkness of the sea. If the truth of this creature came out to the world, then both David and Gruner would have become famous all over the world, but Gruner did not know anything about it. He doesn't want to go anywhere from this island. Gruner didn't have anyone of his own. According to him, no one can live alone in society. Everyone has to live as a slave or servant of someone. That's why this island was perfect for him. This place where he considered himself a king, the master of his own will. That's why he had written in many parts of the island that Gruner is king. But how did that strange female creature become his pet? Actually, once Gruner had saved her life, she was accidentally caught in his fishing net. At that time, that creature was small, and from that day onwards, she stayed with Gruner and started obeying everything he said. But Gruner was an angry person and he never behaved humanely with that creature. He had a regular physical relationship with her. Once that creature even attacked Gruner, and in return, Gruner punished her, a punishment after which that creature started considering herself as Gruner's maid. Maybe that's why every night those creatures come out of the sea to take her back, but she creatures cannot attack in daylight. Well, David does not want to stay here anymore. He wants to leave this place by sending a signal to any incoming ship, but this task was not so easy. Gruner said that no ship comes to this island, but David does not believe him. He does not like staying here at all. He is feeling suffocated here. He wants to leave this place as soon as possible. It is getting evening. Gruner tells him to get ready with the gun because those creatures can attack anytime. They get ready to turn on the light of the lighthouse, and in a short time, a large number of creatures come out of the sea. They are moving towards the lighthouse. Gruner was continuously firing at them, but David was completely scared. He started retreating inside the lighthouse. Even after Gruner's repeated requests, he just sat quietly in a corner, and in a short time David fainted. Gruner kept fighting with those creatures alone. The next morning, Gruner woke him up in anger and said, "If you have to turn on the light, then you will be saved. If you want to stay in the house, you will have to obey my every word, fetch water daily, do all the small and big works of the lighthouse, and do guard duty with him at night." Whether David wanted it or not, it had become a compulsion for him to do all this. To stay alive, he would have to stay in the lighthouse. David was now ready to do all the work of Gruner, but there was one thing that he never liked: to physically torture that female creature in different ways every day. But the mental state of a person who has been living alone on this deserted island for years is bound to deteriorate. David also thinks something similar. Maybe Gruner is not in his right mind now, but still he has to agree to him. It becomes night. Both of them get ready for guard duty again, and once again those creatures come out of the sea. But today David is not afraid. He fired, but today Gruner does not do anything. He leaves David outside and closes the gate of the lighthouse and sits inside quietly so that David can learn himself how to fight these creatures, otherwise he will die fighting. David screams for help, but Gruner does not help him. In this way, the night passes while fighting and it becomes morning. In the morning Gruner sees David's light. He was sitting outside the gate of the house soaked in blood. Now he had learned how to fight these creatures. The fear inside him had gone. Time passed like this, fighting those creatures at night and handling the work of Gruner's lighthouse during the day. This island had become like a closed house for him. He kept thinking all the time that when will he leave this place and when will he be free. With time, David had developed a strange friendship with that female creature. David started feeling bad for her. Now he understood how difficult it is to live alone leaving your people. Maybe that creature also felt something like this. David also gave a name to that creature, Anarius. And then one day he saw that the attacks of those creatures were gradually decreasing. David thinks that maybe they go somewhere else in winter like whales do, or maybe they had understood that they would not get anything by fighting with these two. But Gruner clearly told him that absolutely not, they will attack again. Now they are reproducing themselves. Their number is increasing. Some more days passed like this. One night after dinner, Gruner and David started playing chess to pass the time, but Gruner made a big mistake here. They both got so engrossed in the game that they forgot to turn on the lights of the lighthouse, and taking advantage of the darkness, the Crutchers attacked them. David saw that the Crutchers had now bred. Their number was so high that even two people together could not fight for long. Gun's bullets were also almost over. Somehow they managed to escape and reach the top of the lighthouse, but in the meantime Gruner got a deep injury in his leg. The creatures were trying to enter the lighthouse and David and Gruner could not see any way to escape. They gave up, but luckily it was morning. As soon as the sun rose slowly, the creatures left the lighthouse and went back to the sea. Anarius tried to heal Gruner's wound, but by now David had understood that he would not be able to win this battle with these creatures. Bullets are also about to finish now. They don't have enough food to last for long. Luckily the next day when David was roaming around outside the lighthouse, he saw a ship in the sea. He quickly brought the flare gun from inside and went to signal the ship, but Gruner stopped him because he didn't want David to leave from here. At that very moment Anarius attacked Gruner. She wanted to save David from Gruner. Gruner doesn't want anyone to leave this island. This island is his own world where he lives like a king. He has a servant who obeys him in everything. He doesn't want to leave this life and go back to the city, and he doesn't want to let David go either. After living alone for so long, now he had someone with whom he could talk. Slowly that ship disappeared in the sea in front of David's eyes. Now he had nothing to do. A few more days passed like this. Gruner was still treating both David and Anarius badly, but he especially used to beat Anarius, which David didn't like at all. One day David gifted Anarius a small toy boat which he had made from whale bones. Perhaps this would lighten Anarius' mind a little. But when Anarius saw that boat, it took David to a corner of the island where a real boat was actually kept. When David asked Gruner about that boat, he said yes, he already knew that there was a boat in that part of the island. A few months ago, an arms smuggling ship which was carrying a lot of ammunition had sunk near this island due to a storm in the sea. Some people had reached this island alive through the boat, but before morning none of them survived. All of them became victims of that creature. On hearing all this, a plan came to David's mind. He had something like a diving suit. If any of them wears that suit and dives in that part of the sea, then it is possible that they may get some bullets or dynamite which will make it easier to fight those monsters. But Gruner refused straight away. He did not even want to go near that sea. But David, he was ready to do this even at the risk of his life. A few more days passed like this. A deep connection started developing between David and Anarius. David started liking him. Gruner noticed all this secretly, and at that time for the first time this thought came to his mind that maybe he should help David, but Gruner's real intention was something else. He wanted David to bring back the dynamite boxes kept under the sea to the surface with his help and then leave him alone in the sea so that those creatures kill him. In this way the dynamite will also come to him and Anarius will again become his slave. Both of them reached that place. David wore the diving suit and went down to the sea. The ship was completely destroyed, but luckily they found some boxes of dynamite. Then suddenly that creature appeared appeared in front of them. David got scared and fell down. The iron diving suit was so heavy that he was not able to move. He was not able to send a signal to Gruner. Gruner thought that maybe those creatures have killed David, but in reality there were only two small children there. David created pressure underwater and left his diving suit there. He swam to the surface himself. They found some old boxes there which contained dynamite. They laid dynamite in 2 layers around the lighthouse so that when the next attack happened, if they could finish the monsters in one go. A few months passed and snow started falling, but once again those creatures disappeared. The attacks had stopped. Now their main job was to run the lighthouse and guard it as usual. Gruner's patience had broken. Maybe Anarius had told those monsters about the dynamite plan. That's why they were not attacking now. Gruner became mad with anger and started beating Anarius, but David stopped him. Finally both of them together made a new plan to leave the main gate of the lighthouse open so that as soon as those creatures come near, they can be blown up with dynamite. In a short while, those creatures started coming out of the sea. They went straight towards the main gate and attacked David as soon as they entered. David also shows courage and clashes with those monsters. As soon as those creatures reach the lighthouse, Gruner presses the lever of the dynamite, but there is no blast. David had opened its connection and forgot to reconnect it. David immediately runs upstairs and starts connecting the wire of the dynamite. Till then those creatures are trying to climb the lighthouse and only Gruner is trying to stop them. As soon as the connection is complete, David blows up the first layer. Many creatures are destroyed in the blast, but many monsters are still ready to attack the lighthouse. Due to this, Gruner blasts the second layer as well. Both of them faint in this terrible explosion. Next morning when both of them regained consciousness, Anarius was not there. Dead creatures were scattered all around. Gruner was killing all those who were alive but injured. Then David's eyes fall on a necklace hanging on the neck of one of them, and at that moment David realizes his biggest mistake. The creatures whom he had considered violent till now were also civilized like humans, only they could not speak. Maybe their attack on the lighthouse was due to some reason, but for Gruner all these were useless things. For him he was the king of this island and everyone had to obey his orders. After that day those creatures could never attack like that again. But every day in the sea, a crying voice came from the shore. David did not know till now how much damage he had caused. How many families were broken. How many children lost their loved ones just because of a misunderstanding. The next day David saw some small children of those creatures in the sea. All those who had lost their families. David made a round circle of stones and kept that small toy boat in the middle so that Anarius could return. But no matter how much he waited, Anarius never returned. One morning David saw Gruner lying unconscious. Some old things were kept around him. There was also an old photo among them. As soon as David saw that photo, he was surprised. The girl whose photo he had seen in Gruner's diary the first day was none other than his wife. Gruner had a wife and he was the weather officer of this lighthouse. He had come to this island about a year ago. His real name was Robert, but he had changed his name because now he never wanted to leave this island. Seeing all this, David also gave up the hope that he would ever be able to leave this island. The next day evening when David went to the seashore, he saw that the small boat kept in the circle was no longer there, but at the same place he saw a small child of Crutcher who was holding that boat. David threw his torch in the middle of the circle to show that he does not intend to fight. He does not want to hurt anyone, he wants to be friends with them. After some time, Anarius emerges from the waves of the sea and behind him the whole group of creatures also emerges from the sea, but this time no one attacks David because they also want peace now. Their intention was only to find a safe place for their children, which every animal does. They did not like the sudden entry of humans on this island at all, so they attacked every night. But who can explain this to Gruner? He still considers himself the king of this island. Gruner comes out of the lighthouse with a gun in his hand. David tries to explain to him that these creatures do not want to fight. They want peace, but Gruner does not listen to anyone. He shouts at Anarius and tells him to go inside, but this was the first time when Anarius did not listen to him because now she was not his maid anymore. Now she was just a mother who was standing for her children. Gruner started feeling weak from inside because now no one was listening to his orders. In anger he stepped towards the lighthouse. David thought that maybe Gruner must have understood now that every animal wants freedom. No one wants to live as someone's slave. But Gruner was not a sensible person. As soon as he reached the lighthouse, he fired a flare from the signal gun which went straight and hit a small creature's child. That child died instantly. All the creatures ran away in fear and Anarius also lost all his trust in David. Mad with anger, David immediately runs towards the lighthouse and collides with Gruner. Starts fighting with him. Why did you do all this? These people just wanted peace. But Gruner had become so violent that he decided to kill David. As soon as he was going to attack David with an axe in his hand, David called him by his real name, Robert. On hearing this, Bruner stopped immediately. In reality, Robert was never such a person on this island. But after coming here, his mental state was almost broken. Loneliness, his wife's death and deep depression had made him like this. He was not a killer in reality. He was a good person. Those creatures never wanted to fight. They just wanted peace. Bruner killed them just so that he could show himself as powerful. Now Bruner had realized his mistake, so he surrendered himself to those creatures and in a few moments they killed him. David locks himself inside the lighthouse. Time passes like this and after a year, a government officer comes to the island. There is also a new weather officer. David was taken from there and now the new government officer started monitoring the weather on this island. But that officer thought that David was Bruner. David also did not correct his misunderstanding. He quietly went to the balcony and stood there without saying anything because now he also did not want to leave this island. Just like Bruner, during this time Anrius was also happy with his family. Now he is not afraid of a man like Bruner. Now he could live freely on the island and in the sea. If you watch this far, make sure subscribe and turn on the notification bar so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.